the Biden White House continues to struggle. The 2020 polls look just awful for Joe Biden. And they have another problem, which is that the president is a walking corpse, and everyone knows this. The president of the United States, every night at about 4:30 p.m., they feed him a dinner from Denny's. They put a Matlock rerun on for him. He falls asleep in his chair, and then they wheel him into the crypt, and the door closes. And then, once every couple of months, they bring him out, and they prop his body up on Jimmy Kimmel's couch, and Jimmy Kimmel talks to the body, and Joe Biden puts on his rictus grin, and then he goes back into the crypt, and then we all pretend that he's doing a great job if we are in the legacy media. Well, this provides sort of a problem, because if you're trying to mobilize the American public, if you're trying to change hearts and minds, a corpse is a bad way to do it. Right? See, the thing about El Cid, when you prop a corpse up on a horse to go into battle, is that corpse better have like an enormous amount of goodwill built up, because they ain't building up goodwill being dead. And Joe Biden does not have an enormous amount of goodwill to spare at this point, considering that his approval ratings are down in the 30s. So what does that mean? It means you got to find somebody else to promote the message. And it can't be Kamala Harris, because she is, as we have said, awful at this. Kamala Harris may be the worst single politician on a large stage in the United States in modern American history. She makes Hillary Clinton look like an absolutely charming, wonderful, magnetic human being, Kamala Harris. And so what are they going to do? They can't throw Joe Biden out there. Because, again, if you prop him up at a 90-degree angle, there's a fairly good shot that he goes down like at a 180-degree angle. And Kamala Harris is pathologically incapable of saying anything sincere. She has a smugness on her face is just beyond compare. So what do you do? Well, you go find a popular actor and you have him talk about gun control. So the White House last week, they tried to bring in a K-pop band to talk about anti-Asian discrimination in an attempt presumably to get young Asian voters to vote for an old white man who's no longer alive. And now they're bringing in Matthew McConaughey. Now, Matthew McConaughey seems like a nice guy. I got nothing against Matthew McConaughey. I'm just wondering why Matthew McConaughey? Why? Now they say it's because he's from Uvalde, Texas. Okay, fine. Well, so are presumably tens of thousands of other people over the course of the last several decades. Why Matthew? The reason is because Matthew McConaughey is a popular actor. Now, here's the thing. That doesn't translate over into politics. It just doesn't. There are a lot of people who have sort of popular followings in the acting community, and it does not translate over into, we now support your political agenda. Democrats seem to make this mistake an awful lot, and I'm not sure why. They seem to believe that if they grab a bunch of celebrities and put them on stage at the 2020 convention, for example, that magically this translates into popularity. Most famously, they did this in 2016 with Hillary Clinton, where they had an utterly stone-faced, charmless candidate, and they tried to kind of stick and move around the edges by bringing in Katy Perry and Elizabeth Banks and all of these celebrities. So now the Biden administration is trying to do the same, because I guess you work with what you got. So they bring in Matthew McConaughey to lecture Americans on gun control. And it's not particularly convincing. It's not particularly compelling, other than the weird sight of watching a person who probably will play the president at some point actually standing in front of an actual White House emblem behind him. It's very weird to bring in actors. Something strikes me as wrong about an administration where the president of the United States can't sit for an interview with anyone other than Jimmy Kimmel. So you have a president doing late night talk shows, and you have an actor doing White House press conferences. That seems very odd to me. It just seems weird. Again, this is nothing against Matthew McConaughey, who again seems like a nice person, even if I disagree with him on gun control. But the fact that the White House is bringing Matthew McConaughey to do the press run for this in an attempt to gin up support for Joe Biden's various proposals is very strange. So here is Matthew McConaughey from the White House press room for no reason other than he's very famous and people like his movies.
Uvalde is where I learned to master a Daisy BB gun. That took 2 years before I graduated to a .410 shotgun. Uvalde is where I was taught to revere the power and the capability of the tool that we call a gun. Uvalde is where I learned responsible gun ownership.
Okay, and thus, again, loved you in Interstellar, have no idea why you're here. And then he continued by talking about the Second Amendment, and all of this is just Hollywood. Understand, Hollywood, the media, the Democratic Party, they are all one body. They are all just one osmosis-ridden body. And so if you don't have popularity over here, you squeeze the balloon, and I get some Hollywood actors over here. And if that doesn't work, then the media come in and they prop up the actor. So here's Matthew McConaughey doing some more of this.
Responsible gun owners are fed up with the Second Amendment being abused and hijacked by some deranged individuals. These regulations are not a step back. They're a step forward for a civil society and the Second Amendment.
Again, like I don't know why I'm being lectured by the all right guy. It's fine. Not like if an actor gets invited to the White House to talk about this stuff, I wouldn't expect him to turn it down. I mean, it's like a fun, great opportunity for him, and if not fun, then at least meaningful. Okay, fine. But why is the Biden White House is so pathetic that they are now going to the guy from Sahara and they're like, "Can you come talk about gun control to try to get somebody interested in this?" Because the old man is back there sleeping it off. And then McConaughey says it's time to raise the age to purchase an AR-15. He calls this reasonable, practical, tactical, etc.
We need background checks. We need to raise the minimum age to purchase an AR-15 rifle to 21. We need a waiting period for those rifles. We need red flag laws and consequences for those who abuse them. These are reasonable, practical, tactical regulations to our nation, states, communities, schools, and homes.
I'm not sure why Dazed and Confused guy is lecturing us, but I guess that at a certain point, if the Hollywood of it isn't going to make things happen, you can just go over to MSNBC and they'll try to prop all of this up by pretending that anyone who opposes Joe Biden's gun control agenda is in favor of domestic abuse.
If Mr. Whitfield's mother was killed by foreign terrorists, the Democrats and the Republicans on the committee would be promising him the moon. Is it as obvious as it seems that domestic violent extremists are an important part of the voting coalition on the right? I mean, what is the structural impediment to hardening the homeland against domestic violent extremism?
I'm sorry. It's so pathetic. It's so pathetic. Now, here's the thing. None of this is going to work. The reason none of this is going to work is because the American people are still looking at the economy right now, and they're looking at Joe Biden's actual policy right now, and they're realizing that it's really, really bad. We're in a battle for the culture and for our values. Like and subscribe to help keep our videos on the front line of the fight and top of your feed.